I wake to the steady beep of machines and the antiseptic smell of hospital sheets. My eyelids feel weighted, as if they've been sealed shut with glue. When I finally pry them open, the fluorescent lights above blind me momentarily. A dull pain throbs at the base of my skull, and my mouth tastes like I've been sucking on pennies. "He's awake," someone says, their voice muffled as if underwater. I try to speak, but my throat rasps dry. A straw touches my lips, and I drink greedily, the lukewarm water the most delicious thing I've ever tasted. "Easy there, Mr. Chen." A nurse's face comes into focus, her eyes crinkling with a smile above her mask. "You've been through quite an ordeal." "What happened?" I manage, the words scraping against my throat. "Car accident. 18-wheeler ran a red light and T-boned your sedan." She adjusts something on one of the monitors. "You've been in a coma for 3 weeks." 3 weeks. The words don't make sense at first. I close my eyes, trying to remember. Fragments come back. Headlights, the screech of tires, the sickening crunch of metal. Then nothing. "The doctors weren't sure you'd wake up," she continues, checking my vitals. "Your brain scans showed significant swelling. They prepared your family for the worst." "My family? I haven't spoken to my parents in years." "Your emergency contact, Sophie Winters? She's been here every day." Sophie. My chest tightens. We broke up 8 months ago after 5 years together. I never changed my emergency contact. Dr. Patel arrives an hour later, a tablet in hand and dark circles under his eyes. He stands at the foot of my bed, explaining the extent of my injuries. 3 broken ribs, a punctured lung, and a traumatic brain injury that should have killed me. "Frankly, Mr. Chen, I don't use the word miracle lightly in medicine, but your recovery defies explanation." He swipes through CT scans on his tablet. "The swelling in your brain resolved far more quickly than we anticipated. Your cognitive functions appear intact. You shouldn't be having this conversation right now." I nod, struggling to process it all. "So I got a second chance." "That's one way to put it." He smiles tiredly. "We'll need to run more tests, of course, but yes, you might call this a rebirth of sorts." After he leaves, I lie back against the pillows, staring at the ceiling. Rebirth. The word echoes in my mind, a clean slate, a chance to start over. And then I remember. The lottery ticket. It was a whim, something I never do. Stepping into the convenience store for coffee before work that morning, watching the numbers on the jackpot climb to astronomical heights on the display. 18 million and change. I handed over $2, shoved the ticket into my jacket pocket, and forgot about it until now. The jacket. I wonder if it survived the crash. 5 days after waking up, I'm cleared to go home. My apartment feels like a museum dedicated to a life I barely recognize. A stranger with my name who took too many business trips and never watered his plants. Everything is exactly as I left it that morning. Down to the half-empty coffee mug on the kitchen counter, now growing its own ecosystem of mold. I drop my hospital bag on the couch and stand in the center of the living room, suddenly untethered. The silence is oppressive after weeks of constant hospital noise. I open a window, letting in the sounds of the city 17 floors below. My phone, a replacement since my old one was destroyed in the crash, pings with messages from coworkers expressing relief at my recovery. My boss has assured me my job awaits whenever I'm ready, but the thought of returning to 70-hour weeks analyzing market trends makes something hollow open up inside me. The nurse packed my personal effects from the accident in a clear plastic bag: wallet, keys, watch, face shattered, and miraculously, my jacket, stained with blood, but otherwise intact. I reach into the right pocket with shaking fingers and pull out the crumpled lottery ticket. I sit at my laptop, pulling up the lottery website. The drawing would have happened 2 days after my accident. I key in my numbers slowly, methodically, expecting nothing. The screen flashes. Congratulations. I stare at it, uncomprehending, my brain refusing to process the information. I enter the numbers again, same result. I check the date of the drawing. Check my ticket again. $18.7 million. Before taxes, of course. But still. I start laughing, the sound harsh and unfamiliar in my throat. The absurdity of it all. Nearly dying, waking up against all odds, and now this. What were the chances? The universe has a twisted sense of humor. My phone rings, startling me. Sophie's name flashes on the screen. I hesitate before answering. Eric, it's me. Her voice is exactly as I remember, slightly husky with that hint of Philadelphia in her vowels that emerges when she's tired or emotional. The hospital said you were discharged today. I wanted to check on you. Hey. My voice sounds strange to my ears. I clear my throat. Yeah, I'm home. How are you feeling? Like I got hit by a truck, I say, and then wince at my own joke. She doesn't laugh. Do you need anything? Groceries? I could drop some by? I look at the lottery ticket in my hand. $18.7 million. A rebirth. A second chance. Actually, I hear myself say, I'd love to see you. Coffee, maybe. When you're free. A pause on the other end. I'd like that, she finally says, and I can hear the smile in her voice. How about Thornton's? Tomorrow at 2? Our old place. Perfect. After we hang up, I sit with the lottery ticket between my fingers for a long time. I should tell her. It would be the honest thing to do. But something holds me back. Some quiet, cautious voice that says, wait, see who she is now, who you are now, before adding money to the equation. I tuck the ticket into my bedside drawer and try to ignore the feeling that I've already started my second life with a lie. Thornton's hasn't changed. Same scratched wooden tables, same chalkboard menu with its elaborate cursive, same barista with the septum piercing who always remembered our orders. Sophie's already there when I arrive, sitting at our old table by the window. The afternoon sun catches in her dark curls, now cut shorter around her shoulders. She waves when she sees me, her smile cautious. I'm struck by how familiar and strange she looks simultaneously, like returning to your childhood home to find all the furniture rearranged. She's wearing a faded denim jacket I recognize, and earrings I don't. You look good, she says as I sit down. All things considered. You mean for someone who should be dead? I smile to soften the words. She winces slightly. Don't joke about that. When they called me... She trails off, tucking a curl behind her ear in that nervous gesture I know so well. Anyway, I got you a pour-over. Dark roast, no room for cream. The fact that she remembers how I take my coffee shouldn't mean anything. 5 years together means certain details stick, that's all. Thanks. I take a sip. So, how have you been? It's been, what, 8 months? 8 months and 12 days, but who's counting? She smiles wryly. I've been okay, busy. The magazine cut back staff, so I'm doing the work of 2 people now. Plus freelancing on the side to make rent. Sophie worked, when we were together, as a features editor for a local arts magazine. Her passion for storytelling was one of the first things that attracted me to her in college. That sounds rough, she shrugs. It's the industry. Everyone's overworked and underpaid. She picks at the cardboard sleeve on her cup. I'm actually looking for a new place. My building got sold to developers, and they're raising the rent by 30%. That's insane! Can they do that? With 30 days' notice, yeah. She sighs. So I'm working extra shifts, bartending at Marcus's place on weekends to save for the security deposit. I remember Marcus, her friend from journalism school who owns a dive bar downtown. Sophie had started picking up shifts there toward the end of our relationship, when things were tightest financially. It was a point of contention between us, me thinking it was beneath her talents, her accusing me of snobbery. I have $18.7 million sitting in my bedside drawer. I could solve her problems with a single sentence. That sucks, I say instead. I hope you find something affordable. Thanks. She changes the subject. What about you? Will you go back to work soon? I'm on medical leave for at least 6 more weeks. After that, I trail off, realizing I haven't thought that far ahead. The idea of returning to my investment firm feels wrong somehow, like trying to squeeze back into clothes I've outgrown. I'm not sure yet. The accident changed your perspective. She asks it lightly, but her eyes are searching. Something like that. I look down at my coffee. When you come that close to the end, it makes you question what you're doing with the time you have left. And what conclusions have you reached? I meet her gaze. Still working on that part. She nods, understanding in her eyes. This was always our rhythm. Her asking the right questions, me trying to articulate answers I hadn't fully formed yet. Even now, after everything, the conversation flows with an ease I don't have with anyone else. We talk for nearly 2 hours, carefully navigating around the collapse of our relationship. She tells me about her sister's new baby, the creative writing workshop she's leading at the community center, the stray cat she's been feeding on her fire escape. I tell her about physical therapy, the weird dreams I had while in the coma, the book I started reading in the hospital. When the check comes, I reach for it automatically. Sophie raises an eyebrow. I can pay for my own coffee, Eric. I know, I say quickly. Force of habit, sorry. She relents with a small smile. You can get it this time, I'll get the next one. The next one. The implication that we'll do this again hangs between us, not unpleasant. Outside the cafe we stand awkwardly on the sidewalk. I should tell her now. About the ticket, the money, all of it. But the moment stretches, and the words don't come. It was really good to see you, she says, pulling her jacket tighter against the October chill. You too. I hesitate. Thanks for visiting me in the hospital. You didn't have to do that. Of course I did. She touches my arm briefly, her fingers warm through my sleeve. Just because we're not together doesn't mean I stopped caring. She walks away, heading toward the subway station. I watch her go, the lottery ticket a phantom weight in my pocket. I need time to figure out what this money means before I tell anyone, even her, especially her. After all, money was what broke us in the first place. I met Sophie during junior year in a creative writing elective I took to fulfill my humanities requirement. I was all business major pragmatism. She was journalism and wild ideas. She sat across from me in our first workshop, tearing my sterile prose apart with surgical precision and a half-smile that dared me to be better. I hated and admired her immediately. 2 weeks later, we were arguing about Dennis Johnson over cheap beer at the campus pub. A month after that, I was waking up in her cluttered studio apartment, watching morning light catch dust motes above her sleeping form, wondering how I'd stumbled into something that felt so surprisingly right. We moved in together after graduation. A one-bedroom walk-up with uneven floors and a temperamental radiator that clanged like a possessed metronome. Sophie took her entry-level magazine job, and I started at the investment firm. We furnished our place with thrift store finds and hand-me-downs, planning for the day we'd replace them with furniture bought new. Imagine, she'd say, sprawled across our sagging couch, feet in my lap. Someday we'll have a dining table where all the chairs match. In those early years, our different approaches to money seemed complementary rather than contradictory. I was the saver. She was the occasional splurger. I mapped our financial future on spreadsheets. She reminded me to live in the present. The tension hadn't yet calcified into resentment. The problem started in our 3rd year together. My firm recognized my analytical abilities and accelerated my advancement track. Suddenly, I was working 60-hour weeks, waking at 5, returning home after Sophie was already asleep. The pay increases were substantial, but the cost was time, hours. "You're never really here anymore," she told me one Sunday morning, the only time our schedules reliably overlapped. "Even when you're physically present, you're checking email or thinking about work." It was true, but I couldn't make her understand what was at stake. "I'm building something for us," I'd argue. "This isn't forever. It's an investment in our future." She'd shake her head. "We don't have a future if we don't have a present." Meanwhile, her magazine was struggling, cutting budgets and staff. Sophie took on freelance work, then the bartending gig. Our financial disparity grew. I suggested she look for a more stable position. She accused me of not valuing her passion. I offered to cover more of our expenses. She called it a power play. When I made junior partner at 30, I bought us tickets to Paris. Her dream trip, the one we'd talked about since college. She returned them. "I don't want to be your charity case," she said, voice tight with hurt pride. "And I can't take time off right now anyway. Some of us don't have the luxury." The cruel irony was that the more financial security I sought for us, the more it drove us apart. Money became the substrate of every argument, the subtext of every decision. Did we go out for dinner or cook at home? Was her freelance gig worth the time investment? Should I put in extra hours for the year-end bonus? The final blow came last February. I'd been offered a position managing our firm's new Seattle office. Significant promotion, substantial raise. I'd accepted on the spot. "You took it without discussing it with me?" Sophie stood in our kitchen, hands gripping the counter behind her. "You made a decision that affects both our lives without even asking me?" "It's an amazing opportunity," I said, failing to understand her reaction. "We've always talked about moving somewhere new, and it solves our money problems." "Our money problems." She laughed hollowly. "There is no our in how you think about money, Eric. It's always been about your career, your advancement, your idea of success." "That's not fair. Everything I've done has been on your terms," she interrupted. "You decide what's best for us financially, and I'm supposed to fall in line. That's not partnership." "So what are you saying?" She looked at me for a long moment, tears welling but not falling. "I'm saying I can't move to Seattle, and I can't keep doing this with you." I didn't fight for her to stay. Pride, maybe, or the misguided belief that she'd come around once she realized what she was giving up. The Seattle position fell through 2 weeks after our breakup. Budget restructuring. But by then she'd already moved out, taking half our life together, packed in mismatched boxes. Looking back now, with the clarity of someone who's stared death in the face, I can see we were both right and both wrong. I was building a future without nurturing our present. She was protecting her independence at the cost of collaboration. And neither of us knew how to talk about money without it becoming about everything else: power, respect, priorities, love. Now I have more money than I know what to do with. And Sophie's still struggling paycheck to paycheck. The universe's sense of humor is indeed twisted. The lottery office is housed in a nondescript government building downtown. I wear a baseball cap pulled low and sunglasses, feeling like a B-movie bank robber. The woman behind the desk, Janine, according to her nameplate, has seen it all before. "Congratulations," she says mechanically, barely glancing up from my ticket and identification. "You have several options for receiving your winnings." I opt for the lump sum payout. Roughly $11.3 million after the cash value reduction, but before taxes. Janine walks me through the paperwork with practiced efficiency, explaining that state and federal taxes will take another chunk, leaving me with approximately $7.2 million. More money than I would make in several lifetimes at my current salary. "You'll need to decide whether you want publicity," she says, sliding another form across the desk. "Some winners prefer to hold a press conference, get the media attention over with all at once. Others prefer anonymity." "Anonymity," I say without hesitation. Is that possible? In this state, yes. We're required to record your name for official purposes, but we don't have to release it publicly. She peers at me over her glasses. Just be aware that people have ways of finding out. You might want to think about changing your phone number. I signed the confidentiality forms, painfully aware of the irony. I'm going to extraordinary lengths to keep this secret from the world, including the one person I once promised to share everything with. 2 days later, I'm sitting across from a financial advisor in a sleek office with views of the river. Martin Geller was recommended by the Lottery Commission as someone experienced with sudden wealth. He's about my father's age, with a runner's lean build and the careful speech patterns of someone who measures words by the potential liability they carry. The most important advice I give to windfall clients, he says after hearing my situation, is to do nothing drastic for the first 6 months. No major purchases, no quitting your job, no announcements to family and friends. I nod. That won't be a problem. Good. He makes a note on his tablet. Many people in your position experience what we call sudden wealth syndrome. The psychological impact of a financial windfall can be similar to trauma. Decision-making becomes impaired. Relationships change, sometimes irreparably. I've already decided to keep this private, I tell him. A wise choice. Now let's discuss preliminary asset allocation. We'll want to diversify. I listen as he outlines investment strategies, trust structures, tax considerations. The language is familiar from my work, but the context, me as the wealth holder rather than the wealth manager, creates a strange dissociation, as if I'm having an out-of-body experience. When I leave Martin's office 2 hours later, I have a preliminary financial plan, appointments with an estate attorney and an accountant, and a growing sense of unreality. On the train home, surrounded by commuters in various states of end-of-day exhaustion, I contemplate my secret. $7.2 million. Not billions, not set for generations' wealth, but more than enough to change everything. I could buy a house outright, travel indefinitely, start a business, fund Sophie's dream of launching an independent arts journal. Sophie. My mind keeps circling back to her. We'd share everything, she said once, years ago, during one of those late-night hypothetical conversations couples have. If we ever had real money, I mean. Not just necessities, but experiences. What's the point of having it otherwise? At the time, I agreed with her. But that was before the fights about finances, before she accused me of using money as a control mechanism, before she made it clear that her independence meant more to her than our shared dreams. If I tell her about the lottery now, what would it mean? Would she think I was trying to buy her back? Would it erase the real issues that drove us apart? Or worse, would it create a new imbalance between us, one that could never be rectified? The train lurches to my stop. As I walk the 3 blocks to my apartment, I pass a homeless man I've seen regularly for years. Before the accident, I would nod politely and keep walking. Today, I stop and pull out my wallet. "Hey, man," I say, extending a 20. "Get yourself something hot to eat." He takes the bill with weathered fingers. "Bless you," he mumbles, surprise evident in his rheumy eyes. It's such a small gesture, financially insignificant to me now, but the connection, brief eye contact, shared humanity acknowledged, feels unexpectedly meaningful. I continue home, turning my keys in my palm. Maybe this is how I start. Small kindnesses, private generosity, figuring out what this money means to me before I decide what it might mean for Sophie and me. Or maybe I'm just rationalizing my deception. Sophie calls the following Tuesday. I'm at physical therapy, struggling through exercises to rebuild strength in my left shoulder, when her name appears on my phone screen. "Sorry to bother you," she says when I call back. "I was just wondering if you'd want to have dinner on Friday. There's this new Vietnamese place in my neighborhood that's supposed to be amazing." I hear the careful casualness in her voice and match it with my own. Sounds great. Text me the address? Friday arrives with unseasonable warmth, the kind of October evening that feels borrowed from September. The restaurant is small, tables crammed together, the air fragrant with lemongrass and fish sauce. Sophie waves from a corner table when I walk in, her face flushed from the glass of wine already half empty in front of her. I got here early to secure a table, she explains. Place gets packed. I slide into the chair across from her, noticing the subtle changes 3 weeks have wrought since our coffee date. Her hair is different, highlights I hadn't noticed before catching the light. There's a new, small tattoo on her inner wrist, something delicate I can't quite make out. How's the shoulder? She asks, nodding at the way I'm favoring my right side. Better. Still can't lift anything heavier than a coffee mug without wincing, but the physical therapist says I'm ahead of schedule. Always the overachiever. She smiles to show she's teasing. The waiter comes, and Sophie orders for both of us with the confidence of a regular, rattling off dish names in flawless Vietnamese pronunciation. Impressive, I say after he leaves. I've been studying Vietnamese cooking, online classes. She shrugs. Started during lockdown and never stopped. It's my stress relief. I didn't know that. Well, it's been a while. She takes another sip of wine. 8 months is plenty of time for new hobbies. There's no accusation in her tone, just statement of fact. Still, I feel the weight of time lost, of not knowing this aspect of her life. The food arrives quickly. Steaming bowls of bun cha, crispy spring rolls, a bright papaya salad. Sophie shows me how to properly assemble the components, laughing at my clumsy attempts to manage the rice noodles with chopsticks. So, how's the apartment hunting going? I ask between bites. Her expression clouds. Not great. Everything in my price range is either in dubious condition or a 2-hour commute from work. She sighs. I'm considering moving in with Marcus temporarily. He has a spare room. Marcus. I remember him from parties. Tall, bearded, always looking at Sophie a beat too long when he thought no one was watching. A wholly irrational jealousy flares in my chest. That sounds convenient, I manage. It's not ideal. She pushes a piece of pork around her bowl. But my lease is up in 3 weeks, and I haven't found anything else. I could solve this problem so easily. A word about my winnings, and Sophie would never have to worry about rent again. But then what? Would she feel obligated to revive our relationship out of gratitude? Would I always wonder if she was with me for the financial security? I'm sure something will come up, I say instead. She nods, clearly unconvinced. Anyway, enough about my housing crisis. Tell me how you're really doing. The accident, the recovery, it must be a lot to process. Her genuine concern loosens something in my chest. I find myself telling her things I haven't articulated to anyone. The nightmares about being trapped in the crushed car, the existential vertigo of losing 3 weeks of my life, the strange sense of disconnect I feel from my pre-accident self. It's like there's a before Eric and an after Eric, I explain, struggling to find the right words. And I look like before Eric, and I have all his memories, but I don't feel like him anymore. His priorities feel alien to me now. She reaches across the table, her fingers brushing mine. That makes sense. Trauma changes people, sometimes in ways they never anticipated. Yeah. I turn my hand over, not quite holding hers, but not pulling away either. I keep thinking about all the things before Eric was working toward. The promotion, the corner office, the retirement fund. None of it seems to matter now. So what does matter to after Eric? I look at her, really look at her, taking in the warm brown of her eyes, the tiny scar above her eyebrow from a childhood fall, the way she tilts her head slightly when waiting for an answer. In this moment, the truth is simple. Connection, I say. Being present. Not wasting time on things that don't ultimately matter. She holds my gaze, something soft and uncertain passing over her features. That's a good place to start. When the check comes, Sophie reaches for her wallet, but I'm faster. "Please, let me, for showing me this place." She hesitates. I remember too late her fierce independence, her discomfort with any gesture that might feel like charity. But then she surprises me. "Okay, but I'm getting next time." She tucks her wallet back into her purse. Next time. Again, the promise of continuation. Outside, the night is cooled, and Sophie shivers in her light jacket. Without thinking, I slip off my coat and place it around her shoulders. It's such an old-fashioned gesture, something my father would have done. Not me. She looks up, startled, then smiles. "Thanks." We walk slowly toward the subway, neither of us seeming eager to end the evening. At the entrance to the station, she stops and returns my coat. "This was nice," she says. "I've missed—" She catches herself. "It was good to catch up." It was... The words that want to follow, about the lottery, about my feelings, about possibilities, crowd behind my teeth. But what comes out is, "We should do it again soon." She nods, a small smile playing at the corners of her mouth. I'd like that. As she descends the subway stairs, I remain rooted to the spot, watching until she disappears from view. The weight of my secret sits heavy in my chest. Would telling her be generosity or manipulation? I still don't know. All I know is that for the first time since waking up in that hospital bed, I feel fully alive and terrified of losing that feeling again. 2 weeks after our dinner, I sign a lease on a new apartment. Not the penthouse my newfound wealth could afford, but a significant upgrade from my previous place. A 2-bedroom in a renovated pre-war building with high ceilings and a small terrace overlooking a pocket park. The rent is triple what I was paying before, but still a drop in my financial ocean. "Quite a step up from your old place," comments my colleague James when he helps me move in. "I've known him since business school, the closest thing I have to a friend at the firm." The accident settlement must have been decent. The cover story I've crafted, a substantial insurance payout from the accident, is plausible enough that no one questions it. People expect financial windfalls after near-death experiences, though usually not of this magnitude. "It covered some upgrades," I say vaguely, setting down a box of books. "Plus, the accident made me realize life's too short for a view of the building's air shaft." After James leaves, I stand alone in my half-furnished living room, surrounded by unpacked boxes. The emptiness of the space echoes the strange hollowness I feel, despite, or perhaps because of, my secret fortune. I've upgraded my surroundings, but still haven't figured out how to upgrade my life. I start small. New clothes that fit better than my pre-accident wardrobe, a high-end mattress to help with my still-aching back, kitchen equipment that might inspire me to cook more often. Nothing flashy enough to raise eyebrows, but quality items that quietly announce a modest elevation in status. The first time I exercise my new financial power more openly is at the farmer's market on a crisp Sunday morning. Ahead of me, in line for heirloom apples, a young mother tallies her purchases on her phone, frowning at the total. Her daughter, maybe 4 years old, clutches a small pumpkin, wide-eyed with longing. "I'm sorry, sweetie," the mother says gently. "We need to put that back. It's not in our budget today." The little girl's face falls, but she nods with the solemn understanding of a child who's heard these words before. Before I can overthink it, I step forward. "Excuse me," I say to the vendor. "I'd like to pay for their purchases, and the pumpkin." The mother starts to protest, but I raise a hand. "Please, my grandfather was a farmer. He always said good produce should be shared." The lie comes easily, surprising me. It would make my day. She hesitates, then smiles tentatively. "That's very kind. Thank you." The little girl beams up at me, gap-toothed and radiant, hugging her pumpkin. I pay for their items and my own, waving away further thanks. As I walk home, a warm satisfaction spreads through my chest, different from the rush of closing a deal or earning a bonus. Simpler, cleaner. I helped someone today with no expectation of return. It feels good. I begin making these small gestures regularly, leaving generous tips at restaurants, anonymously covering a stranger's grocery bill, donating to the musician in the subway station. None of these actions dent my wealth in any meaningful way, but they begin to reshape how I think about money, not as something to be hoarded and grown, but as a tool for creating moments of unexpected grace. Sophie notices the subtle changes in me when we meet for a movie the following weekend. "New shirt?" she asks, as we stand in line for tickets, her head tilted appraisingly. "Yeah?" I resist the urge to tell her it cost more than I would have spent on an entire outfit before. "Thought it was time to update my wardrobe a bit." She reaches out, straightening my collar with a familiarity that makes my pulse quicken. "It suits you. Blue's always been your color." Inside the theater, our hands brush in the popcorn tub, and neither of us pulls away immediately. The darkness hides my smile. After the movie, we walk through the park, debating the film's merits. Sophie has always been the more insightful critic, catching nuances I miss, seeing connections between scenes that escape me. I find myself watching her face as she talks, the animation in her expressions more compelling than any movie. "What?" she asks, catching me staring. "Nothing, I search for words that won't reveal too much. I'm glad we're doing this again, spending time together." She slows her pace. "Me too, though I have to say you seem different since the accident." Her eyes study my face. More present somehow, less. She gestures vaguely. "Obsessed with work?" I supply. I was going to say future-focused, but yeah. She smiles. "Whatever's changed, it suits you." If she only knew. The irony isn't lost on me. Now that I have more money than I ever dreamed of, I'm finally becoming the person she always wanted me to be. But would she still believe the change was genuine if she knew its catalysts were a near-death experience and a winning lottery ticket? Later that night, alone in my new apartment, I stand on the terrace looking at the city lights. My phone buzzes with a text from Sophie. "Thanks for today. It felt like old times." "The good old times." I type back, "It did. Let's not wait so long for the next one." Her response comes quickly. "Deal? Sleep well, Eric." I clutch the phone, feeling simultaneously lighter and more burdened than I have in months. November arrives with biting winds, and Sophie's increasing anxiety about her housing situation. We're having coffee at a small bakery near her workplace when she gets the call. "Yes, this is she says, her expression hopeful. Then, gradually, her face falls. "I see. No, I understand. Thank you for letting me know." She hangs up and sets her phone face down on the table with deliberate care. "Another rejection?" I ask gently. "The apartment on Warren Street." She wraps her hands around her mug. "Someone offered 6 months' rent up front. I can't compete with that." "I'm sorry. It's fine." Her attempt at nonchalance fails as her voice catches. "Marcus's offer is still open. It'll just be temporary." I take a breath. "Sophie, if you need help with a deposit..." "Don't." She cuts me off, a familiar edge in her voice. "Please don't offer me money, Eric. That's not why I told you." "I know," I say carefully. "But friends help friends. It wouldn't have to mean anything beyond that." She sighs, softening slightly. "I appreciate the thought, but I've got it covered." She straightens, changing the subject. "Anyway, that's not even the biggest issue right now. My mom called last night. Carol Winters has been battling rheumatoid arthritis for years. Sophie's relationship with her mother is complicated, love tangled with old resentments, but she's always been fiercely protective of her. Her new treatment isn't covered by insurance, Sophie continues, staring into her coffee. Out of pocket, it's about $12,000. I whistle softly. That's steep. Yeah, and she's already maxed out her credit cards on medical bills. She rubs her temples. I've been looking into personal loans, but with my debt-to-income ratio... She trails off, shaking her head. I could write a check right now. $12,000 is nothing to me anymore. But I know Sophie. Her pride, her independence, her complicated feelings about financial assistance, especially from me. What about your sister? I ask. Rachel lives in Chicago with her husband and new baby. On maternity leave with her own bills to pay. Sophie sighs. I'll figure something out. I'm meeting with the hospital financial counselor next week to see if they have any assistance programs. We finish our coffee, the conversation shifting to lighter topics, but I can see the worry weighing on her shoulders as we walk outside. Hey, I say, stopping on the sidewalk. Let me at least help with the security deposit on a new place. Consider it a loan if that makes you feel better. She starts to refuse, then pauses, visibly wrestling with herself. I can't ask you for that. You didn't ask. I offered. Why? Her eyes search mine. Why would you do that after everything? Because I have millions sitting in various accounts doing nothing. Because I could solve all your problems with a fraction of my wealth. Because I still love you. Because I care about you, I say instead, and I can afford it right now. The insurance settlement, I add, the lie sour on my tongue. She studies me for a long moment, then nods slowly. Okay, but as a loan, with interest, and I'll draw up terms. Whatever makes you comfortable. That night, I transfer $5,000 to her account. It's far more than a typical security deposit, but still insignificant enough that she might accept it without too many questions. I label it housing loan to emphasize its purpose. She texts me an hour later. This is too much. I respond, rent in this city is ridiculous. First/last/security adds up. We can adjust the terms. There's a long pause before her next message. I don't know what to say. Say you'll find a great apartment and invite me over for dinner when you're settled. Deal. Thank you, Eric. This means more than you know. If only she knew how easy it was for me, how much more I could give her. The thought both comforts and disturbs me. 3 days later, Sophie calls, her voice vibrating with excitement. I got the apartment on Maple Street, the one with the built-in bookshelves and the clawfoot tub. That's great, I say, genuinely happy for her. When do you move in? 2 weeks, and... She hesitates. I was wondering if you might help. With the actual moving part, I mean. If your shoulder's up for it. Of course, I smile into the phone. I'm surprisingly good at assembling IKEA furniture. I remember, she says softly, and for a moment we're both quiet, memory hanging between us. After we hang up, I sit at my kitchen counter, staring at nothing. Sophie has accepted my financial help, however limited. It's a start, but her mother's medical bills remain a looming problem, one she's too proud to let me solve directly. I open my laptop and begin researching Carol Winters' condition, the treatment options, the insurance appeal process. There must be a way to help without revealing my hand. Sophie's new apartment is a third-floor walk-up in a brownstone, smaller than her previous place, but with character. Crown molding, hardwood floors, an arched doorway between living room and kitchen. By the time we finish moving her in, muscles aching from carrying boxes up narrow stairs, the November afternoon is fading into early darkness. Beer? She offers, opening the mini-fridge that's temporarily set up in the living room while her kitchen comes together. God, yes. I collapse onto her couch, the same one from our shared apartment, now draped with a new throw blanket in shades of mustard and teal. She hands me a bottle and sits beside me, close enough that our shoulders touch. Thanks for today. I couldn't have managed without you. Happy to help. I take a long drink. The place looks great. Those bookshelves are perfect for your collection. They're why I fell in love with the apartment. She smiles, looking around the half-unpacked space with satisfaction. It already feels more like home than the last place ever did. We eat takeout Thai food on the floor, surrounded by moving boxes labeled in Sophie's neat handwriting. Kitchen essentials, winter clothes, books, fiction AM. There's something intimate about helping someone move, seeing all their possessions categorized and contained, the pieces of their life temporarily dismantled before being reassembled in a new configuration. How's your mom doing? I ask as we clear away the empty containers. Sophie's expression clouds. About the same. The financial counselor wasn't much help. We make too much for assistance, but not enough to afford the treatment. She shakes her head. The system is broken. I'm sorry. I hesitate. If there's anything I can do. She gives me a weary smile. You've done more than enough. This apartment is possible because of you. I can't ask for more. The perfect opening presents itself. I could tell her now, about the lottery, about my ability to help, about how different things could be. The words rise to my throat. But then she continues, Besides, I've been thinking about freelancing full-time. The magazine keeps cutting hours anyway, and I could make more with a couple of steady clients. The moment passes. I swallow my confession and nod. You've always been an amazing writer. Clients would be lucky to have you. Later, we end up on her small balcony despite the cold, wrapped in blankets with glasses of whiskey, looking at the slice of sky visible between buildings. A rare, clear night reveals a handful of stars competing with the city's light pollution. Remember that weekend at your college roommate's cabin? Sophie asks, her breath clouding in the cold air. When we saw the Perseids? I smile at the memory. You insisted we stay up until 3 in the morning even though it was freezing. Worth it though, wasn't it? Absolutely. We'd laid on a dock at his lakefront property, bundled in sleeping bags, watching meteors streak across the sky. Sophie had gasped at each one, squeezing my hand, her joy so pure it made my chest ache. I remember thinking I wanted to spend my life giving her reasons to look like that. We should do something like that again, she says quietly. Get out of the city for a weekend, somewhere with actual stars. I turn to look at her, her profile illuminated by the string lights she's hung along the balcony rail. I'd like that. She meets my gaze, something vulnerable in her expression. Eric, what are we doing? What do you mean? This. She gestures between us. The dinners, the movies, helping me move, it feels like... She trails off. Like what? She takes a breath. Like we're moving towards something, and I need to know if that's what's happening because I can't... She stops. I can't go through losing you again. My heart hammers in my chest. Is that what you want, for us to try again? She's quiet for a long moment, looking back up at the night sky. I still have feelings for you, she finally says. I never stopped having them, but I'm scared that we'll end up right back where we were. I'm different now, I say, the words rushing out. The accident changed me, Sophie. The things I used to think mattered, the promotions, the status, none of it seems important anymore. People say that after trauma, she says softly, but sometimes they slip back into old patterns when the shock wears off. This is different. I set my glass down, turn fully toward her. I want different things now. I want connection, presence. I want... Her phone rings, cutting through the moment. She glances at the screen. It's Mom. I should... Of course, I nod, sitting back as she answers. Her expression shifts from annoyed to alarmed as she listens. When? Okay, did they say how long? I'll be there first thing tomorrow? No, don't worry about that now. I love you too. She hangs up, her hand trembling slightly. What's wrong? I ask. She fainted at work. Sophie's voice is tight. They're keeping her overnight for observation. The doctor thinks it's related to her medication. They've had to adjust the dosage because they can't start the new treatment without payment up front. I'm so sorry. I reach for her hand. Do you want me to drive you down there tonight? She shakes her head. It's a 3-hour drive, and visiting hours are over. She takes a shaky breath. But I need to go first thing tomorrow. I'll have to call work, figure out what to do about the rest of the unpacking. Don't worry about any of that. I can continue unpacking tomorrow while you're gone, and I'm sure your boss will understand the emergency. She squeezes my hand gratefully. Thank you. We sit in silence for a moment, the intimacy of our previous conversation hanging unfinished between us. Then Sophie stands, wrapping her blanket tighter around her shoulders. I should start packing a bag for tomorrow, she says, and you should get home before it gets too late. I nod, understanding the moment has passed. Call me when you get there. Let me know how she's doing. I will. At her door, I hesitate, then pull her into a hug. She feels small and solid in my arms, her head fitting perfectly under my chin as it always did. We hold each other a beat too long for friendship, not quite long enough for something more. It's going to be okay, I tell her as we separate. She attempts a smile that doesn't reach her eyes. You don't know that. But I do know, because tomorrow I'll find a way to anonymously pay for her mother's treatment. The confession about my lottery win can wait. Right now, Sophie needs solutions more than she needs truth. As I walk to my car, I'm struck by a realization. I'm afraid the money will become the foundation of our relationship. That if I tell her now, when she's vulnerable and worried about her mother, the financial rescue will overshadow everything else between us. I want her to choose me, the person I'm becoming, not the fortune I stumbled into. It takes 3 phone calls and a substantial wire transfer, but by Monday afternoon, Carol Winters' medical treatment is fully paid for. I work through Martin Geller, my financial advisor, who connects me with a healthcare advocacy firm that specializes in anonymous medical bill payments. The firm calls it Philanthropic Health Intervention. I call it the least I can do. The payment will appear to come from the Sunrise Foundation, Martin explains over the phone. It's a legitimate nonprofit we work with for situations like this. The hospital will simply inform Miss Winters that an anonymous donor has covered her treatment costs. And there's no way to trace it back to me? I confirm. None. The foundation handles dozens of these cases monthly. Your identity is completely protected. He pauses. May I ask why the secrecy? Most people in your position would want the recipient to know about their generosity. I think of Sophie's fierce pride, her distrust of financial solutions, her accusation years ago that I used money as a control mechanism. It's complicated, I say. Let's just say it's better this way. That evening, Sophie calls as I'm making dinner. The relief in her voice is palpable. You won't believe what happened, she says without preamble. Someone paid for Mom's treatment, all of it. I grip the counter, steadying myself. What? How? I have no idea. The hospital called her this afternoon saying a foundation had selected her case. They wouldn't give details, patient privacy laws or something, but said the treatment is completely covered. She laughs, a sound of pure joy I haven't heard in years. Can you believe it? What are the odds? That's incredible, I manage, smiling at her happiness despite the lie. Your mom must be thrilled. She couldn't stop crying. They're starting treatment tomorrow. Sophie's voice catches. It's like a miracle, Eric. After everything that's happened, it's like the universe is finally throwing us a bone. The universe. If only she knew the universe's intervention came in the form of a convenience store lottery ticket and her ex-boyfriend's secret millions. I'm so happy for you both, I say, and this much is true. The weight lifted from her shoulders is worth any deception. Over the next few weeks, I settle into a pattern of anonymous giving. Nothing flashy or attention-grabbing. I'm not building wings on hospitals or endowing university chairs. I focus on immediate, personal impact. The single mother behind me in the pharmacy line whose insurance won't cover her son's asthma medication. The elderly man at the park who mentions his heat was shut off. The aspiring photographer in Sophie's building whose laptop died right before a major deadline. Each time the mechanics are different. A cashier informed that the bill has been taken care of. A utility company receiving payment from an account correction. A refurbished high-end laptop delivered with a note about a community technology grant. But the result is the same. A problem solved, a burden lifted, a small moment of grace in someone's day. I don't tell anyone about these acts, not even my financial advisor. They're private, almost intimate exchanges between me and strangers who will never know my name. There's something pure about it. Helping without recognition, giving without expectation. In one of our late-night phone conversations, Sophie tells me about a family in her mother's treatment center whose child needs specialized care they can't afford. It breaks my heart, she says. These parents working 3 jobs between them, and it's still not enough. The system is so broken. The next day, I arrange for the child's treatment to be covered through the same foundation that helped her mother. When Sophie calls a week later, bubbling with excitement about the amazing coincidence that the same foundation helped this family, I feel a twinge of unease at my deception, but push it aside in the face of her happiness. Maybe there are guardian angels after all, she says. If she only knew her guardian angel was currently sitting in sweatpants, eating takeout, and watching her favorite detective show, because it makes him feel closer to her. As December arrives, Sophie's mother responds well to treatment, and Sophie throws herself into freelance work with renewed energy. She's happier than I've seen her in years, calling me with updates about her mother's progress, sending me drafts of articles to review, texting random thoughts throughout the day as if we'd never been apart. We fall into a comfortable rhythm of dinners, movies, and long walks despite the winter chill. We don't discuss the almost conversation from her balcony, but something has shifted between us. Our goodbyes linger. Our texts grow more affectionate. We orbit each other with the gravitational pull of planets realigning. The night before Christmas Eve, Sophie invites me to her apartment for dinner. Nothing fancy, she says. Just my way of saying thank you for everything these past months. I arrive with wine and flowers, suddenly nervous in a way I haven't been around her in years. She opens the door wearing a dark green sweater I've never seen before, her curls pinned up with tendrils framing her face. "You look beautiful," I say, before I can stop myself. She blushes, pleased. "Come in, something's in the oven." Her apartment has transformed since moving day. Bookshelves filled and organized, art hung on walls, plants on every surface. It's quintessentially Sophie. Colorful, slightly cluttered, intensely personal. I spot several items from our shared life. The ceramic bowl we bought at that arts festival in Portland. The vintage map of Paris I gave her for our 3rd anniversary. She's made coq au vin, my favorite dish that she rarely cooked because of the expense and time involved. The gesture isn't lost on me. "This is amazing," I say after the first bite. "You didn't have to go to all this trouble." "I wanted to." She pours more wine into my glass. "You've been so supportive since your accident, with the apartment, with Mom. I don't know what I would have done without you." Guilt flickers through me. "Anyone would have done the same. No, she says firmly. They wouldn't have. You're special, Eric. You always were. I just think I forgot that for a while. The air between us thickens with unspoken words. I reach across the table, taking her hand. Sophie, Wait, she interrupts gently. Before you say anything else, I need to tell you something. She takes a deep breath. I've been thinking a lot about us, about what went wrong before. I wait, heart pounding. I think I was as much to blame for our problems as you were, she continues. I resented your focus on financial security, but I never fully appreciated why it mattered so much to you. Growing up with your parents' instability, of course you needed that foundation. I stare at her, stunned by this insight. My childhood had been a roller coaster of feast and famine as my father cycled through jobs, my mother stretched food stamps, and my father's inconsistent paychecks. Sophie knew this history, but she had never connected it so directly to my adult behaviors. And I was so insistent on my independence that I couldn't see when cooperation would have made us both stronger, she adds. I was afraid of being controlled, but that fear controlled me instead. Sophie, let me finish, she says with a small smile. What I'm trying to say is, I think we've both grown, changed, and if you're open to it, I'd like to see what we could be now. Together. My heart soars, even as my conscience sinks. She thinks I've changed, and I have, but not entirely on my own. The accident altered my perspective, yes, but the lottery win has allowed me to act on that perspective without financial constraint. Would she feel the same if she knew I'd been lying to her all these months? I want that too, I say finally, more than anything. She smiles, eyes bright with unshed tears. Really? Really. I squeeze her hand. But there's something I need to tell you first. Something important. The words hover on my tongue. The truth, finally. But as I open my mouth to speak, my phone rings with Martin Geller's distinct ringtone. I glance at it, intending to ignore the call, when I see his text message preview. Urgent. Problem with foundation payment. Your name may have been exposed. Call immediately. My blood runs cold. I'm sorry, I say to Sophie, already standing. I have to take this. It's work. A client emergency. Another lie atop the mountain I've built. She nods, understanding but clearly disappointed. Of course. Take your time. I step onto her balcony, closing the door behind me before answering. What happened? Martin's normally composed voice is tense. There was a clerical error at the foundation. The payment for Carol Winters' treatment included a routing document with your name on it. The hospital has this information now? Shit. I run a hand through my hair, pacing the small space. How bad is it? It depends on whether anyone connects the dots. The document doesn't mention the lottery winnings, just that you were the source of funds. But if someone investigates further... Can we do damage control? Some kind of confidentiality agreement with the hospital? We're working on it, he assures me. But I thought you should know immediately, if Miss Winters or her daughter have been notified already. I glance through the balcony door at Sophie, waiting patiently at the table. I understand. Keep me posted. Ending the call, I stand frozen, watching my breath cloud in the December air. It's all unraveling. Soon Sophie will know everything, not because I chose to tell her, but because of a clerical error. The thought makes me physically ill. I return to the table, my appetite gone. Everything okay? Sophie asks. Just a work issue, I lie. Nothing that can't wait until tomorrow? She studies my face. You look pale. Are you feeling all right? Actually, I'm suddenly not feeling great, I say, the lie coming too easily now. Maybe I should head home. Disappointment flashes across her face, but she nods. Of course. Can I get you anything before you go? No, I'll be fine. Rain check on dessert? At the door, she touches my arm. Eric? What was it you wanted to tell me? I look at her, trusting, open, finally ready to try again, and I can't bring myself to ruin this moment with a confession that will soon be forced anyway. It can wait, I say. We'll talk tomorrow. She rises on tiptoes to kiss my cheek. Feel better? As I drive home, my phone buzzes with texts from Martin about containment strategies, but all I can think is that the house of cards I've built is about to collapse. And I have no one to blame but myself. Sophie doesn't call the next day, or the day after. I text her Christmas greetings and receive a brief, polite response that sets alarm bells ringing. When I suggest getting together after the holiday, she says she's busy with family and freelance deadlines. By December 30th, I'm convinced she knows something. The Foundation has confirmed that Carol received documentation with my name, though apparently without explicit mention of the payment amount or source of funds. Still, for a journalist like Sophie, even that thread would be enough to start pulling. New Year's Eve arrives, and I decline invitations from colleagues, opting instead to spend the evening alone. At 11:30, as the city outside my window prepares to celebrate, my doorbell rings. Sophie stands in the hallway, cheeks flushed from cold or anger, or both. She doesn't wait for an invitation before brushing past me into the apartment. Nice place, she says, looking around with deliberate casualness. Much nicer than your old one. That insurance settlement must have been substantial. My heart sinks. Sophie. Funny thing, she continues, removing her coat and draping it over a chair with precise movements. I visited Mom yesterday. She showed me some paperwork from the hospital, documentation about her treatment funding. She turns to face me. Your name was on it, Eric. I say nothing, watching her pace the living room, studying my belongings with new eyes. The subtle upgrades, the small luxuries I thought wouldn't be noticeable. At first, I thought there must be some mistake, she continues. How could you possibly afford to pay for treatment that costs thousands? Then I remembered your sudden generosity with my deposit, your new apartment, the expensive shirts. She stops, fixing me with a stare. The timing of it all, right after your accident. I can explain, I begin, though I'm not sure I can. Please do. She crosses her arms. Because I've been connecting dots all week, and I don't like the picture they're forming. I gesture toward the couch. You might want to sit down. She remains standing, jaw set stubbornly. The accident didn't just change my perspective, I say slowly. There was something else. The day of the crash, I bought a lottery ticket. Just a random whim. $2 I'd normally never spend. I take a deep breath. It won $18 million. Her expression doesn't change, but she sinks onto the couch as if her legs can no longer support her. When? The drawing was while I was in the coma. I found out the day I came home from the hospital. The same day you called me, she says quietly. The day you suggested coffee. I nod, unable to read her tone. So all this time, she gestures vaguely at the space between us. All these months of reconnecting, of building trust again, you've been keeping this from me? I was going to tell you, I say, hearing the weakness in my own defense. That night at your place before Martin called, you paid for Mom's treatment anonymously. It's not a question. And what else, Eric? What other puppet strings have you been pulling from behind the curtain? It wasn't like that. What was it like then? Her voice rises. Explain it to me. Help me understand why you would watch me struggle with housing, with Mom's bills, with everything, while sitting on millions of dollars. Because I was afraid. The words burst out of me. Afraid that the money would change how you saw me. Afraid you'd think I was trying to buy my way back into your life. Afraid we'd just repeat our old patterns on a grander scale. So instead you lied, for months. Her eyes glitter with angry tears. Do you have any idea how that makes me feel? How humiliating it is to realize you've been watching me scramble to make ends meet when you could have snapped your fingers and fixed everything. I did try to help. On your terms, she cuts in. Always on your terms, Eric. That was our problem before, and apparently nothing's changed. You still think you know what's best for everyone else? That's not fair, I protest. I was trying to protect our relationship. What relationship? She demands. The one based on a fundamental lie? The one where you get to play God in my life without my knowledge or consent? She stands abruptly. You didn't trust me enough to make my own choices, to react to your good fortune authentically. You decided for me what I could and couldn't handle. Each word hits like a physical blow because I know she's right. For all my justifications, the truth is simple. I didn't trust her. Not with the money, not with my fears about it, not with the choice of how to move forward together. I'm sorry, I say, the words wholly inadequate. I never meant to hurt you. But you did. She retrieves her coat. And the worst part is, I don't even know who I'm angry at. The old Eric who was obsessed with financial security, or this new one who uses money as a secret tool to manipulate situations. She shakes her head. Maybe they're not so different after all. Sophie, please. I move toward her, but she steps back. Let's talk about this. We can work through it. I need time. Her voice is firm despite the tears now falling freely. And space. Don't call me. Don't text. For how long? She pauses at the door. I don't know, Eric. Maybe until I can look at you and see something other than a lie. The door closes behind her with a quiet click that sounds like finality. Outside my window, fireworks explode as the city celebrates the arrival of a new year. I stand alone in my expensive apartment, surrounded by the trappings of wealth that suddenly mean nothing at all. 3 weeks pass without a word from Sophie. I respect her request for space, though every day without contact feels like an extension of my punishment. I throw myself into work, not my old job, which I've officially resigned from, but the business of managing my new wealth, meeting with the foundation to establish proper protocols for future donations, researching meaningful investment opportunities, creating structures that will allow me to help people without the secrecy that proved so destructive with Sophie. January brings bitter cold and the hollow aftermath of holiday cheer. I find myself wandering the city on long, aimless walks, retracing paths Sophie and I used to take together. Past her old apartment building, past Thornton's Cafe, past the bookstore where she dragged me to author readings I pretended to find tedious, but secretly enjoyed because of her enthusiasm. On an especially frigid Tuesday, I end up at Marcus's bar, a masochistic choice, but I can't seem to help myself. The place is nearly empty at 4 in the afternoon. I take a seat at the far end of the bar, ordering a whiskey I don't particularly want. Marcus recognizes me immediately, his expression cycling through surprise, wariness, and something like pity. "Haven't seen you in here before," he says, sliding my drink across the bar. "First time," I admit. "Probably the last." He studies me for a moment. "She's not working today." "I know." I take a sip of whiskey. "I'm not here to ambush her." "Then why are you here?" I consider the question, rolling the glass between my palms. "Honestly, I have no idea." He snorts, wiping down the bar. "Well, at least you're honest about something." The barb lands as intended. "She told you." "We're friends," he says simply. "Friends talk." I nod, accepting this. "Is she okay?" Marcus hesitates, professional detachment warring with something else. Concern, maybe, not for me but for Sophie. "She's tough. She'll be fine." That's not what I asked. He sighs, leaning against the bar. "Look, man, I'm not getting in the middle of this. But for what it's worth, I think you fucked up royally." He shakes his head. "The money thing. That's one level of betrayal. But making her feel like a charity case? Making decisions about her mother's medical care without telling her? That's some next-level control shit." "It wasn't like that," I say automatically, but the protest sounds hollow even to my ears. "No? How would you feel if the situation was reversed? If she had millions and was secretly pulling strings in your life while watching you struggle?" The question hits me with unexpected force. I've been so caught up in my own justifications that I never truly put myself in Sophie's position. The humiliation she must have felt. The betrayal of trust. The realization that our entire reconnection was built on a foundation of deception. I'd feel manipulated, I admit quietly. And foolish for not seeing it sooner. Marcus nods, seemingly satisfied with my answer. "For what it's worth, she's working through it, just not on your timeline." "Thank you," I say, leaving my barely touched drink and enough cash to cover several more. "For being honest with me." "One more thing," he calls as I reach the door. "Whatever you decide to do next, if you get another chance, remember that relationships built on unequal power dynamics are doomed from the start." His words follow me out into the bitter cold, echoing in my mind as I walk the 15 blocks home, letting the winter air scour my lungs. That night, unable to sleep, I pull out my laptop and begin to write. Not excuses or justifications, but the unvarnished truth. About my childhood fears of financial insecurity. About waking from the coma with a new perspective but old habits. About the lottery win and my terror that money would once again become the center of our relationship. About the genuine joy I found in helping others anonymously. And how that joy became tainted by deception. I write until dawn breaks over the city, my fingers cramping and my eyes burning. When finished, I read it through once, making no edits. Then I print it, fold the pages carefully, and seal them in an envelope with Sophie's name. The next day, I leave the letter with her doorman, along with strict instructions not to mention who delivered it. No dramatic gesture, no demand for response. Just truth, finally, offered without expectation. February arrives with sleet and gray skies that match my mood. Sophie hasn't responded to my letter, which I've accepted as her answer. I move through my days in a fog, going through the motions of my new life without any of the joy or purpose I'd begun to find before everything fell apart. "You need to snap out of this," Martin tells me during our monthly review meeting. "You have resources most people can only dream of. Use them." I do, in a way. I travel, Paris, Tokyo, the Maldives, staying in luxury accommodations that I barely notice. I buy a vacation home in the Berkshires that sits empty. I donate to causes Sophie cared about, though I'm careful now to do so openly, transparently, without the secrecy that proved so damaging. Nothing fills the hole she left behind. Nothing answers the fundamental question her absence has forced me to confront. Who am I now? Without work to define me, without Sophie to center me, with money removing all practical obstacles, who am I choosing to become? On a raw March afternoon, I find myself in my therapist's office. Dr. Chen, no relation, is in her 60s, with silver-streaked hair and the direct gaze of someone who has spent decades seeing through people's self-deceptions. "You're punishing yourself," she observes, after I describe my aimless existence since Sophie's departure. "Using your wealth for distraction rather than purpose." "Maybe I deserve punishment," I reply. "I lied to someone I love for months. I manipulated situations to maintain control." "Yes," she agrees simply. "You did those things. The question is why?" "Because I was afraid the money would change how she saw me." "And beneath that fear?" I stare out the window at the skeletal trees in the park across the street. That she would only want me for what I could provide, not for who I am. "And who are you, Eric?" The question stops me short. I don't know anymore. I think you do, she says quietly. But you've spent so long defining yourself through external measures. Career success, financial stability, relationship status, that you've lost touch with your internal compass. She leans forward slightly. Tell me about your parents and money. The question seems tangential, but I humor her. My father couldn't hold a job. Brilliant but unreliable. Would quit whenever he felt disrespected, which was often. My mother stretched every dollar until it screamed, but it was never enough. I swallow against unexpected emotion. There were nights we went hungry, times the electricity was shut off, the constant anxiety of never knowing if we'd make rent. And how did your parents express love? I frown. My mother through worry and sacrifice. My father. I hesitate, a realization dawning. When things were good, when he was between jobs but had severance, or when he'd just started something new, he'd buy us things. Expensive things we couldn't afford. A bicycle, a gaming console, as if he could stockpile our affection for the lean times ahead. Dr. Chen nods. And when you became financially successful as an adult? I did the same with Sophie, I admit. Nice dinners, jewelry, the trip to Paris she refused. I close my eyes briefly. And now, with the lottery money, the anonymous gifts, paying for her mother's treatment, it's the same pattern. Using money as a substitute for emotional connection. As a wall, not a bridge. Patterns established in childhood are powerful, Dr. Chen says, but recognizing them is the first step toward choosing a different path. I leave her office with a clarity I haven't felt in months. The emptiness inside me isn't just about losing Sophie, it's about losing myself. Or rather, never fully finding who I am apart from the external trappings of success and security. That evening, I stand on my terrace watching the city lights blink on as dusk falls. A decision crystallizes. I can continue this hollow existence, using wealth as a buffer against genuine connection, or I can risk vulnerability again, with or without Sophie in my life. The choice, when framed this way, isn't really a choice at all.